Hello, and welcome to Own Your Retirement. My name is Albert Lalonde from Kaizen Financial. If you'd like more information about what you hear during our show today, give us a call at 586-752-7008 or visit us online at www.kaizenfinancialinc.com. That's Kaizen, Kaizen. And while on my website, click on my podcast page to check out my past shows and to subscribe to our program on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Amazon Music. All right. There's one number a lot of retirees watch closely every fall. And no, it's not the fantasy football scores. In fact, it's the Social Security cost of living adjustment, or what we call COLA. Now, the Social Security Administration, or the SSA, recently announced the 2026 COLA, and it's coming in at 2.8%. That's a modest increase, but it still means a little more breathing room for millions of retirees. In fact, a recent Kiplinger article titled 2026 Social Security COLA is 2.8%, what you need to know. It notes that according to the SSA, 2.8% may translate to about $56 more per month for the average retiree. So that's bringing the average benefit to roughly about $2,071. For married couples receiving benefits, the increase could be closer to $88 a month, raising the typical total to about $3,208. So it's not a dramatic jump, but in this environment, even small adjustments may help offset rising prices. Interestingly, this announcement was also delayed a bit this year because of the recent government shutdown. Now, some Bureau of Labor Statistic employees were temporarily brought back just to finalize the Consumer Price Index report, which is the data used to calculate the COLA. So, while the news came a little later than usual, retirees can now plan around that new number for next year. But before we get started and talking about this, let me bring in my co-host who swears their coffee budget could use its own cost of living adjustment. Hey, Tony, how we doing, buddy?
Well, yeah, like everything else, Albert, coffee has gotten more expensive. And I do love my coffee drinks in the morning, right?
Yes.
Yep, I'm drinking one right now. So,
Cheers.
this is interesting. Obviously, you hear 2.8. Hey, it's a little better than last year. It was 2.5, I guess. But it's still not enough because costs have increased, I think, more than that. The calculations they use, I don't know if they're really fully using the cost of groceries and the cost of healthcare, things like that. But any COLA adjustment is a plus, right? I mean, there were a couple of years not that long ago we didn't have any increase.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
So,
oh, yeah.
2.8. Better than nothing, we'll take it. But I think COLA, or the cost of living adjustment, is so important, especially for retirees who are watching every dollar. So I'm glad we're talking about this. Social Security is a big topic. It's probably the one we get the most questions about, and that you get the most questions and feedback about, right?
Sure. When we look at this 2.8% cost of living adjustment in context, it actually lines up pretty closely with what we've seen over the long term. In fact, during the past 20 years, Social Security's COLA has averaged about 2.6%. So yes, 2.8 is modest, but it isn't unusual. Especially when you're taking the current inflation that's sitting around 3% right now, and projections for next year are a bit lower than that. So this increase may help many retirees mostly keep up with the day-to-day cost increases. And I'll say mostly because for some people, it may not feel like it's enough still.
And why do you think that is?
Well, you have to understand, because retirees often spend more in areas like, let's say, healthcare, housing, and prescriptions, and those things that may go up a bit faster than the overall inflation. So even if the COLA match, let's say, was 2.8 is reasonable, someone who's seen their out-of-pocket medical costs jump might still feel like they're falling behind. And you can really see how wide the swings have been. In fact, we've had years like 2016 when the COLA was literally 0.0, like you mentioned, because
Yeah.
prices were actually moving down in some areas. Then just a few years later in 2023, when inflation spiked after COVID supply disruptions, the COLA shot all the way up to 8.7%. That was, in fact, one of the biggest jumps in recent history. But since then, we've seen it cool off 3.2% in 2024, 2.5% obviously in 2025, and now 2.8% for 2026. So what we're seeing now may be more of a return to, let's say, normal.
Yeah. And that's so interesting because I think a lot of people still remember that 8.7% jump
Yes,
from a couple of
yes.
years ago. And they kind of liked that and were hoping for something like that every year. But what you're saying is the average number, or what we can expect, is typically closer to 2 or 3%. And, it may be a sign that inflation is calming down, not heating up, which could be a good thing, but like you said, healthcare costs and drug costs, things like that, are still rising exponentially. Yeah.
Well, I mean, yes. I mean, you hit it right there to the point. A COLA of 8.7% usually means the economy is under a lot of stress.
Yeah.
It's a nice to have that, but it means, again, you're living in an environment that's very volatile. Now, a COLA of 2 to 3% may not feel exciting to people, but man, it can mean prices are stabilizing, which can
Sure.
make it a little easier for people to budget.
Okay. I know I'm going to regret asking this, Albert, but how does the Social Security Administration actually come up with the COLA number every year? I know they don't look at my healthcare cost increase or my
Correct.
property tax increase each year, because then we'd get about a 20% increase in Social Security.
Well, we'll say it's not a guessing game. They don't just guess. All right.
Sure.
It's actually based on a formula tied to inflation.
Sure.
Specifically, the government uses something called the Consumer Price Index for urban wage earners and clerical workers, or what we call CPI-W. Now, that wasn't always the case. When Social Security first started, Congress had to pass a new law each time they wanted to raise benefits. But in the 1970s, inflation was running so high that people's fixed incomes were losing value fast. So in 1972, Congress passed an amendment to make those adjustments just automatic. And the first automatic COLA went into effect in 1975. Now, today, the Social Security Administration looks at inflation specifically in July, August, and September, and then compares the average prices during those months to the same 3 months from the previous year. The percentage change between those two averages become the COLA for the next year.
So it really is a direct reflection on what's happening with inflation in those 3 months, not the entire year, and not necessarily actual inflation, but the inflation of that CPI-W.
Yes, precisely. In fact, it's a snapshot, if you will. They may not capture all the ups and downs in prices over the full year, but it gives a good benchmark for how the cost of living is actually trending. And there have also been proposals to base the COLA on a different inflation measure called the CPI-E, which focused on Americans aged 62 and older. But supporters say it might reflect the expenses retirees face, especially since it puts more weight on healthcare costs, like you said earlier. But so far, those proposals, well, they haven't really gone anywhere.
Yeah, because it would cost the government a lot more because they would be a lot higher than 2.8 that we're
Correct.
getting. And that
Correct.
makes sense because Social Security benefits, I guess, aren't just for retirees, though, right?
Correct, correct. In fact, the COLA also applies to disability and survivor benefits, not just retirement checks. So while a retiree-focused index could help some groups, it might not be as fair or effective across all people who rely on Social Security right now.
Interesting. That's a hot take. I still think it would be better, but whenever we do a show on Social Security, Albert, I'm reminded all over again how many layers this program really has. And like anything the government rolls out, you can get deep in the weeds, and that's where people struggle with it, right?
They do. Now, so here's something a lot of people don't realize until they're already receiving benefits. And if you're collecting Social Security and you're still working, your earnings may temporarily reduce your monthly benefit. It's called the earnings test, and it applies to people who start claiming benefits before reaching full retirement age. So for 2026, the Social Security Administration will withhold $1 in benefits for every $2 you earn above $24,480 per year. And that's about a $2,040 a month. So if someone keeps working part-time or takes on consulting work and earns more than that, well, their benefit could be adjusted downwards temporarily.
Yeah, and temporarily is the key word, right? Because those benefits aren't really lost.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, once you reach full retirement age, Social Security recalculates your benefit amount and credits back the months when payments were withheld. Now, over time, you may recover much of what you didn't receive earlier, so it's more of a timing issue than a penalty. And in the year when someone reaches full retirement age, the test becomes more lenient. In fact, in 2026, the SSA will withhold $1 for every $3 earned above $65,160, or about $5,430 per month. So if someone's planning to keep working a bit while easing into retirement, it may make sense to understand where they stand relative to those thresholds.
Yeah, and that's really good to know. And I have a great example of this, Albert. My next door neighbor, great guy, but he was in his 60s and he was working full time, very good job for the state court system. And he was making over 6 figures a year.
Yeah.
But everybody, he thought, oh, I don't know. I've had health issues and everybody tells me to take it at 62. He filed for Social Security while he was still working full time because he heard that he would get more checks if he filed at 62. But he kept working full time until he was 70.
Oh.
So basically, he got no Social Security money, even though he filed or checks during that time because he was making too much, right?
Yep.
So they kept taking money, withholding money, and he just basically got little to nothing during that time. And then once he finally kicked it in, he could have let it roll up until 70 because he was making plenty of money, and he would have gotten a lot more. I mean, he lost tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars over lifetime benefits. And he's still going strong, and he's in his, he's in his mid to late 70s now, and he's going strong. So that was a huge mistake, and he wasn't working with a trusted financial services professional like yourself. He didn't have a Social Security Maximization Report run, and those are the things that you have to do. Don't file at 62 just because a family member did or your neighbor did or a buddy at work. You've got to look at your situation. When are you going to actually retire and stop working? Are you going to work in retirement part-time? But especially if you're going to keep working full-time, you don't want to file for Social Security from what you're saying.
Yeah, you do have to understand that a little foresight, a good understanding of how these rules work may actually help you avoid these surprises. And a lot of people fall into it. It's surprising how many times we talk about this. And I get people come in to see me every year and they're clueless on what they're doing. They had this idea, just like your example of the judge. I mean, it's amazing what people do. And so well, people have to understand that the taxable wage cap it's just another important Social Security update too for 2026 that affects people who are still working. So they are really, wanting to know what is that cap every year. And this is the maximum amount of income that's subject to Social Security taxes and also the amount used to calculate your future benefits. Okay, so for 2026, that cap is increasing to $184,500, which is up $8,400 from the $176,100 limit in 2025. So in other words, any income you earn above $184,500 next year won't be taxed for Social Security purposes, and it also won't increase the benefit you eventually receive.
Right, and so that cap moves up almost every year, doesn't it?
Yes. In fact, it's indexed to inflation. So as overall prices and wage rise, that ceiling adjusts upwards too, and has gone up from 168.6 just in 2024 to 176.1 this year, and now 184.5 for next year in 2026. So you can safely anticipate that it may climb again in 2027 if inflation continues at a similar pace.
Yeah. So for people who earn above that limit, their take-home pay might see a small bump once they hit that cap, but it doesn't necessarily translate to higher Social Security benefits down the road.
You got it. And while it's one of those lesser known details, understanding how that wage cap works may help you set expectations for both your paycheck and your eventual retirement benefit. Now, here's another key number to keep in mind for 2026: how much you need to earn to qualify for Social Security work credits. Now, these credits are what determine whether you're eligible for retirement benefits down the road. So, to qualify, you need at least 40 credits over your working lifetime, and you can earn up to 4 credits per year without without enough credits. The Social Security Administration simply can't pay you retirement benefits.
Wow. Okay. So that's huge. So what are the details for those credits in 2026 then?
So for 2026, you'll earn 1 credit for every $1,890 in wages or self-employment income. That means you'll need to earn $7,560 during the year to get the maximum 4 credits. Now, by comparison, in 2025, it took $1,810 to earn a credit, or about $80 less. So you can see how that threshold rises each year with inflation.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really important. And so those credits really serve as your ticket into the Social Security system, not just for retirement, but for things like the disability or survivor benefits too, right?
Oh, yeah, you're right. In fact, the number of credits you've earned may also determine eligibility for disability benefits, Medicare, and even survivor benefits for your family. It's one of those behind the scenes factors that quietly builds over your career, but it can make a big difference when it's time to claim benefits later on.
Yeah. Yeah. And all of this matters a lot. But now you have a report that you can run for our listeners and viewers out there called the Social Security Maximization Report, right? The Social Security Maximization Report. Easy for me to say, but even easier for you to get to our clients and viewers. All they have to do is set up that no charge, no obligation consultation. Come in and take it. There's no cost to that, just the time. Put in some of their personal information in there, their full retirement age, things like that. And it really lays out, okay, when's the sweet spot for me to file based on my personal situation and my spouse's, if I have a spouse. And that's important, isn't it? How can our listeners get that report run?
Yeah, folks, if you want to learn how to maximize your Social Security or all the ins and outs, just give us a call at 586-752-7008, or you visit us online at www.kaizenfinancialinc.com. That's Kaizen, Kaizen. Scheduling a consultation only takes a few minutes, folks, and we're always happy to work around your schedule.
Yeah. All right. So let's jump back into today's topic. What do you have for us next?
Well, think about when you choose to begin claiming your benefits. It's one of the biggest factors that can affect how much you receive from Social Security. So timing can make a big, big difference. Now, if you wait to start collecting until age 70, obviously your monthly benefit may increase significantly. Social Security adds roughly 2/3 of 1% for each month you delay after your full retirement age. And that's about 8% more per year. So if you wait until 70, your benefit could be around 28% higher than it would have been if you started right at your full retirement age.
Wow, that's a huge difference. But
Mhm.
the reverse is also true, right? Claiming early may mean locking in a lower benefit for life.
That's a fantastic point there, Tony. For those born in 1960 or later, claiming at age 62 may reduce your benefit by almost 30% compared with waiting until full retirement age. And spousal benefits can be reduced even more, up to 35% if claimed early. So remember, a spouse's maximum benefit is 50% of the worker's full retirement amount. So that reduction applies on top of that 50%.
Wow. And that's why some people look at what's called the Social Security bridge strategy, which is using savings or investments like IRAs or 401ks to cover expenses for a few years so they can delay claiming their Social Security benefits, because doing that can allow your Social Security income to grow to its full potential, or a fuller potential at least, before you start drawing it, right?
Yeah, I mean, everyone's situation is different, but for those who have other retirement assets to lean on, waiting to claim may help boost that guaranteed income stream for the rest of their life. And I want folks to understand too, it's not always about how much that you're trying to maximize for yourself. If you're married, you also got to look at the widow's benefit and making sure one of yours is larger than the other and not the same. Because
Yeah.
when you lose one, you want to make sure you're getting more of the increase. So that's a big key as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really important. So, we've talked a lot about this, and everybody's situation is different, and maybe they need to file at 62.
Mhm.
Waiting to claim may help boost that guaranteed income stream. I think that's really important for a lot of people, isn't it?
Um, that's true, and it's well, let's just say there's one of the biggest misconceptions out there. Social Security may feel automatic, but there are so many choices that can affect how much you receive over your lifetime. Things like when you file, how long you work, whether you coordinate benefits with the spouse, and even how you manage your other income sources can all change the outcome. So, a financial service professional helps you see those moving parts as one picture, not as separate decisions, if you will.
Mm. Yeah, because it's not just about when do I start my benefit, it's how that decision fits into your overall retirement strategy.
Yes. In fact, here's an example. One of the first things I do with clients is run several Social Security claiming scenarios. We look at what happens if they claim at 62, at their full retirement age, or if they wait until 70. Now, what's nice is I can show them in real dollars how much each option may add or subtract from their monthly income, and importantly, how long it may take to break even. So that context helps people make confident, informed decisions instead of guessing.
Yeah. And that makes so much sense. It's helpful because it's not a one size fits all situation. For some, waiting might make sense. For others, maybe there's a reason to claim earlier. Either you have serious health issues, or you absolutely have to have the money at that time. Health and financial needs come into play here, don't they?
Oh, yes, indeed. In fact, there's no universal best age. A financial services professional looks at the whole full picture, your health, your work plans, your spouse's situation, your savings, even your tax bracket. Sometimes it makes sense to claim earlier, while in other cases, waiting may provide a much higher long term benefit. And that's where strategy comes in because it can help you balance Social Security with other income sources to create a sustainable retirement strategy.
Yeah. So you're helping people coordinate how they use their different buckets of income,
Mhm.
like savings, investments, retirement accounts, to support their lifestyle while still letting their Social Security benefit grow. Is that what you do?
Yeah, I mean, I like to think of it as a building retirement income bridge, for example. Someone might use withdrawals from a 401k or IRA for a few years to cover expenses while delaying their Social Security claim. That approach may allow their Social Security benefit to grow by roughly 8% per year, like we said, between full retirement age and age 70. And that's a big jump. And because those withdrawals are planned strategically, we can often manage taxes more efficiently at the same time.
Yeah, there it is. Taxes and how taxes,
Hmm.
yeah, how they tie into Social Security and a strategy is an angle people might not realize or consider.
Oh, gosh, I think that's exactly right, Tony. Up to, in fact, 85% of your Social Security benefit may be taxable depending on your total income. Now, a financial service professional can help structure withdrawals from different accounts, blending taxable, tax deferred, and even Roth assets to help you stay in a lower tax bracket or minimize the taxation of all your benefits. Now, it's about coordination. Social Security doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's one piece of the larger retirement puzzle.
Yeah. And I think that's huge. And I imagine you also help people project what their expenses might look like,
Mm-hmm.
Albert, because
Mm-hmm.
retirement isn't just about income. It's about making sure that income matches what you want your retirement lifestyle to be and your own goals for retirement, right?
Yes. In fact, that's one of my favorite parts of the job is talking about lifestyle goals, not just number. Some people want to travel, some want to downsize, some want to help with grandkids, college funds. Once we know those goals, we can estimate what that lifestyle may cost and build a strategy that balances guaranteed income like Social Security with flexible income from investments. That's where we can help align the emotional side of retirement with the financial realities.
Yeah. Well, and that's a great way to put it because so many people think of preparing for retirement as just spreadsheets and charts, but it's really about designing the life you want to live, isn't it?
Yes. Social Security is the foundation for most American. It's retirement income, but it's not the whole house. You have to understand that. A financial service professional helps you design the rest of the structure, how your investments, savings, and insurance all work together so you can stay confident no matter what the markets do or how long you live.
Yeah, that's true. And I think it is the foundation for most Americans, as you say. And I know for some listeners, this may sound like something you can just read about online or plug into a calculator. But what you're describing sounds so much more personalized. And I know the software you have does over 20,000 calculations to figure these things out, too, right?
Yeah, there's like 567 different ways to collect Social Security, which is crazy. And
Yeah,
online calculators are great for quick estimates, but they don't know your health history, your
right.
goals, or how you actually spend money. So that's where a financial service professional can run the same numbers through a retirement income model and then adjust for your personal situation with things like inflation, medical costs, or even part-time work. So we can also stress test your strategy. What happens, if inflation runs higher or if one spouse claims early and the other waits? That level of insight may help you make smarter, more resilient decisions.
All right. Well, hey, great show today. A lot of great information. Before we go, one more time, let our listeners know how they can get that Social Security Maximization Report run and set up a no charge, no obligation consultation with you.
Yeah, folks, if you have questions about your retirement and your financial strategy or Social Security, visit my website at www.kaizenfinancialinc.com. That's Kaizen, Kaizen, or call my office at 586-752-7008. We'd love to help you protect your savings and feel confident about the road ahead so that you can own your retirement.
All right. And that does it for today's episode of Own Your Retirement with our host, Albert Lalonde.
Take care.